Priscilla.
Hi, Heather.
Can we see your space?
Of course.
Great.
Welcome to my studio. My name is Priscilla Swanson, and I've been a member of this community for 3 decades now. This used to be my salon, and recently I've changed it into a co-creative space. Unfortunately, during the last 6 months, it's become only my private space. But as you can see, I display some of my friends' artwork. And here's a display of my father's wood carvings.
Gorgeous.
That he spent many, many hours perfecting. My whole life I've been surrounded by an environment that encourages creativity and an expression of oneself. So I dabble in art, and I always have since I was a child. This is some work that I did about 1.5 years ago, and these are acrylic pour paintings. I dove in and experimented heavily for a few weeks, and then changed my focus.
They're beautiful.
So I'd like to share with you some of the art forms that I've done in the past and what I'm working on currently.
Great.
So come on into my workshop. This used to be the salon, and I created here for 17 years with a natural fiber that was hair, and shared the space with many lovely people. Since I closed the salon, this space was turned into a classroom, and I've gotten to share the space with new people in the art community, and it's been really, really wonderful.
So gorgeous in here.
So lately I've been dabbling with painting on rocks, and found a little tutorial online, which is such a wonderful resource for people that want to try some art and they don't know where to start. YouTube is just a wealth of information, and I found a great tutorial on there. It pretty much was this Hamsa design, and anyway, I just kind of took it from there and created some work. In the past, I've done a lot of clay work. This particular media is called precious metal clay. It is solid silver, but the material starts as clay.
Wow.
And so we form the piece of jewelry with the texture in it and put it in a kiln where it turns to pure silver.
Amazing.
Let's see. I got into jelly printing this past year, and it's a fun process to put layers of paint on in different textures, and basically you work on paper, which then can be put onto different boxes or bags, postcards. I've also taken these prints and photographed them so that they can be reproduced on products.
So great.
So I'm on a couple different websites that create incredible products. This is a glass tray, and it's done from this little. So lately I've been into upcycling denim and other apparel items. So this has been a really fun process for me, working with bleach, working with paint, hand drawing on some of this. This is actually hand drawn with a bleach pen on prior bleached out jeans.
Wow.
All the jeans are sourced from secondhand stores. I also have been loving these little military type jackets.
Yeah.
And I guess I should
You gonna show us how to make something?
show you what I do to
Great.
get the patterns on the denim. So I'm gonna work on these cute little jeans.
Adorable.
And I'm gonna use a process called stamping. So I put a little paint on the surface here and use a brayer to spread it around. And I always work with some pieces of fabric right next to me so I can clean my brayer off or clean the actual stamp off. But it's a really fun process. I don't think too much about a composition when I'm doing this. I'm just using my intuition and analyzing what's going on the piece as I do it.
How did you come up with this idea, this particular idea?
Well, while I was doing the jelly prints, I acquired all these stamps and stencils, and the process to do the jelly prints is very, very similar. But I just wanted to take it to another medium where it might be more accessible for people, a little more usable. You know, I think we like to have art in our life, but sometimes we don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
You know, there's only so much wall space.
Right.
So this was a way to put art out there and share it and make it fun. For me, art is a time when I focus and become immersed in the process. It's a really good feeling. Can't stress more about the feeling.
Yeah. So less about product, less about the final product and more about the process?
It most definitely is about the process. When you're trying to create something and you're just letting the process flow through you and happen, it's kind of like a meditation.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Carson, and I am an artist at the shop at the Gunnison Art Center. I've been a participating artist there for about 4 or 5 years, and I also teach there. And I took my first art class, my first painting class at the Art Center. I painted this painting here with Gail Sovic, and that was the first time I painted in acrylic, and I just got hooked on it and really loved it.
So Candy, what are you working on here?
This is going to be a fall painting. I'll probably have maybe a scarecrow, some pumpkins, something like that in there. I love to do skies. They're my favorite thing to paint. And I usually put an underpainting down, so this is all orange and red under here. It just kind of brings the colors out when you do that. And, you know, I paint over it several different times till I get the clouds the way I like them. And there's so many different ways to paint clouds. But it's fun. It's a great little hobby, a great way to spend your time painting. Someday I'll have a big studio, but that'll be a ways. Since it's fall, I'll do fall paintings so I can take some new paintings into the art center. In the winter, I like to do winter scenes. The spring, I like to do flowers. So I go more towards nature in my painting, the birds and stuff like that. I'm trying to become looser in my paintings. Sometimes I think I paint too tight, and it's really fun to just paint and be loose with your painting. But it takes practice. I've just started painting on a little bit larger canvases, and that's different, but it's really good. My greatest challenge is being looser, standing back and not getting too tight with the painting. I think that's the hardest thing for me, because I don't want to paint realistic paintings. I want to, have them kind of more abstract and free-flowing, and so you have to step back and not get too tight with it. And that takes a little bit of practice to do that. So I'll put probably, a couple more coats on here. And then it's learning how to put the paint down, where you put it down heavy, or then use your brush and make the strokes lighter. So there's little tricks to it that you just learn over time. And then learning to step back and look and see. I'm starting to like this a little bit better in here. So this is my little studio. It's my art studio and my office and my yoga studio all in one. Some of my past paintings that I've done. And birds. I love to do birds. They're really fun. And a little raven there. And then I make cards out of my paintings, which I have several. I'm going to take these to the art center for the fall. I had summer ones in all summer. And along with being a painter, I'm also an author, I guess you could say. I wrote that book, Diary of a Deadhead, which is available also at the art center. So I have plenty of things to keep me busy in my little studio here.
just like smoking cinder, and my eyes are dark as timber. Let her get away, thought we ran away. Oh, and that unknown heartbreak, thought I was saved by that river. Thought we got away, thought we got away. To the Red Mountains to find what people call the unreachable vein.
Hi, I'm Ellen Harriman. I've lived in Gunnison over 50 years, and about 1985, a friend of mine, Pat Venturo, and I opened the E&P Sewing Emporium in downtown Gunnison. One of the things that we did as a part of our store was to start a quilting group. Most of us had projects that weren't finished, or it just seemed like an old-fashioned quilting bee would be a fun thing to do. So people were encouraged to bring their ideas and their unfinished things and just come and socialize on Tuesday night. So, you know, that's how we ended up naming the group the Tuesday Night Quilters. Pat and I had the store until the year 2000, and the Tuesday Night Quilters have gone on since then, but that's where it started.
Hi, my name is Judy Junkman. I started quilting when I went to work for Pat and Ellen at the E&P fabric store, and that was my actual first experience with quilting. Before that, I just sewed clothing and random objects like bike bags and things. The Tuesday Night Quilters has been going continuously since 85, and when the store closed in 2004, we moved up to the Lutheran Church, and we meet every Tuesday night, and anybody's welcome to come with whatever project they're working on. We occasionally do group projects, but mostly people work on their own projects, and it's open to everyone. We have, in the summertime, lots of summer people. So there's probably a core of around a dozen people, but it fluctuates depending upon the night and what's going on else in town, like concerts, which tend to thin our groups quite a bit. A lot of the projects that people do are individual. They work on their blocks at home, and occasionally, if they get stuck, they bring them in and say, what do I do with this? How do I arrange these? And we all get together, and it's always a fun time when someone brings in a group of blocks and says, let's put these together. And so we all get to move them around the way we like them. And then, of course, they go home with the individual quilter, and they do whatever they want. But we get to have fun playing. A lot of these big quilts, sometimes they take a long time. I still have a quilt that I started when my son was 3. He's now 31. So sometimes they take a long time and sometimes they don't take as long. Most of these quilts were done within a year, or at least since the last 2 years since we had the quilt show before. One of the group projects that people do sometimes is have play days, and I think it was Rita who came back with her chicken, I think it was, had taken a class of Laura Heine's patterns, which is a collage, a fabric collage technique, and she was all excited about it. She came back and she got a bunch of friends to play along on a play date. So everyone bought their pattern and they got together and they talked about how it worked, and Rita gave them some tips that she got from her class, and they ended up with a group of fabric collages. We were inspired by a show of art quilts in a magazine and decided that as a group, maybe we should try and do our own art quilts. We started, well, this is our 3rd one, so every 2 years, however long ago that is. We started with long panels because that's sort of the space that allows for very large, long, skinny things to be hung from the ceiling. And most people found that that was just not doable, even to hang them in their own homes. It didn't seem like it allowed for very much variety in where you could put them. So we were inspired by postcards, quote unquote postcards. Actually, there's a group of people who do postage size postcards and send them through the mail that they make out of fabric, which are very cool and very fun to do. And if you've been to St. Mary's in the hospital there in Grand Junction, they have a display of large size postcards that tell about the history of Grand Junction. So we took that idea and decided, since we are a vacation and resort spot, that we would do our own postcards about what we like about Colorado, and it could be anything. It could be sports or history or landscape, whatever we wanted. And everyone got together and we decided on the theme, and then we decided on the size, and then everyone was let loose to use their imagination and do whatever was interesting to them. So we have landscapes, and we have animals, and we have sports, and we have some history, and just lots of different things that people like about Colorado.
We ready? Can't you see? Can't you see what this whole world has done to me? I'm so tired, I cannot fight. I can't make it through the night without I've been bailing water for so long, like singing a tired old song. Yes, I've been bailing this pain and this strife, just stumbling through my life. Without you, when it's the world against you and I, we can turn all this poison to wine, turn our darkest nights to day, so I can quietly slip away with you. Some say rage is only good in whiskey and wine, but I got you and I know that you're mine. Like kids we sing and we play, just asking please one more day with you. Can't you see? Can't you see what this new world has done to me? I found religion in your smile. I can't wait, baby, for that next mile with you. With you. When it's the world against you and I, we can turn all this poison to wine, turn our darkest nights to day, so I can quietly slip away with you. Oh yeah, with you. Pretty good.
That was really good, I thought.
I can't believe how fast that was.
I'm Ellen Harrow. facilitator for the League of Women Voters of the Gunnison Valley. And this quilt is in honor of the 100th anniversary of suffrage, and so that's the name of the quilt, the 100th anniversary suffrage quilt. This quilt was a project of the League of Women Voters of the Gunnison Valley. Our organization has been part of the National League of Women Voters for probably about 40 years. And this was the anniversary of the League of Women Voters, 100th anniversary of its founding in 1920, and also the passage of the 19th Amendment. As part of our celebrating for this entire year, we have been doing projects and events and publications that commemorate suffragists of all sorts. This quilt only has 25 names on it, but there are hundreds of other women who were active in the suffrage movement. So we decided that it would be appropriate to make a quilt honoring suffragists, and we found this teacup pattern because it all started with the Tea Party in 1848 with Elizabeth Cady Stanton. And we enlarged the saucers under the teacup so that we could embroider the names of suffragists. We've written a book that's going to be available through Amazon, a little booklet of biographies of all the women who are listed on the quilt. There are about 5 of us who made blocks and put the quilt together. Heidi Duryea and Kristin Butte quilted it for us, and she quilted the name League of Women Voters right here in the corner. All of the women on here are representative of some particular element of suffrage work. Amelia Bloomer is famous for creating an outfit that didn't get worn very long, but we all know the name Bloomer, and she was a very active suffragist. Several of the women were journalists in Denver, and we remember them, like Elizabeth Ensley, for the work that they did supporting the Colorado was the first state in the nation to have a general plebiscite, a vote to add women's suffrage to the state laws. Wyoming was the first state to have women's suffrage, but Colorado was the first state to actually vote in 1893 by a 2/3 vote to include women in suffrage. Mostly the western states were much more generous with their giving of rights than the eastern part of the country. But each one of these women is worthy of remembering for some element of the work that she did in the suffrage campaigns.
How long did this take you guys to make?
We started in March and we were finished probably in May. One of the benefits of being stuck at home is that you have time to do these projects. But it was kind of, we were socially distanced, so we worked at home and let people know when there was something on the back step to go pick up, and we communicated by email and by dropping things on each other's back porches.
music store. My name is Matthew Grant. I'm the new owner and proprietor, and we just opened in the Gunnison Valley about a month and a half ago. We're going to be a little bit more of a full-service music store, branching out to drums, keys, and electronics. The biggest part of what we're doing, what I'm sitting on right now, is going to be our stage and our live performance venue. So pretty much on a weekly basis, we're going to be hosting touring bands, we're going to have open mic nights, and we're going to be doing kind of coffee shop style on Sunday afternoons. But I can take you around and give you a quick little tour of the shop if you'd like. We also just become a Breed Love dealer. So this is one of our newer instruments we just got in. It's a Breed Love nylon string. We're in the process of continuing to build the inventory in the walls. So here we have the Taylor guitar section, kind of followed by our entry-level section down on the bottom for students and beginners. We're also hoping to partner with local artists and photographers and bring in pieces of work. Moving into our vintage guitar section here, comes here with some banjos. We do full services and repairs here at Blue Mason Music. So anything that you may need, restrings, tune-ups, adjustments, truss rods, and even down to wood and neck repairs, we can do that. A little bit of string and inventory.
So I wrote this song thinking about my dad. He was always chose to live outside of town, but he worked in a big city, so we always lived in the country. So therefore, I'm blessed because I'm bona fide countryfied, and that's the name of this song, bona fide countryfied.
Ready?
Amen.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
City life, going to the countryside. That's where I belong. City life's long gone, long gone, long gone. I was running hard and moving fast. Energy just wouldn't last. Time doing this and that, knowing not what I got.
next song.
Thank you.
Isn't that nice?
Hi, I'm Kent Viles from Dobrado Resophonic Guitars at 235 North Main Street, and I'm going to give you a demonstration of how I assemble my unique guitar design called the Dobrado. So the Dobrado is basically a combination of a dobro or a resophonic guitar with a pedal steel guitar, and how I'm achieving that is with this mechanism that we've developed. So let me go through the process with you. So I start with a body shell, and this is the sound well. This is where my cone will eventually set in it. But I really will start at the headstock. So what I first do is I carve and shape a nut, and the nut fits right here. I spend probably the most amount of time on the feel of the fretboard. I feel like if a guitar is comfortable to play, then you'll play it. If it's uncomfortable, regardless of its features and its sound, then it's probably going to sit in a corner. So I spend a lot of time on making sure that my fretboard and my fret area has a real good feel in your left hand. So I do that by, first off, I file down all the edges of my frets. And I use a flat file here to take those down so they're not bumping out the edge of the fretboard. And I take another file and I round off all those fret ends so they have a nice round feel on the ends of the frets. So when you move your hand up and down the neck, you don't feel anything but just the binding on the side of the neck. Then I go through and I first level all the frets. So I check that all the frets are level, and I do this with a tool like this. And if I find a high fret, then I'll take it down. Generally, I can knock it down just a little bit with my fretting hammer. If I have a high fret that can't be knocked into place, then I'll go ahead and remove some material with one of my sanding sticks. Then I'll go back with a series of polishes for the frets. So I'll take down the top of the fret material with about a 400 grit sanding block. Do each one individually. Then I'll come back through with steel wool and polish every fret end. After the fretboard's done, I'll go ahead and apply some almond oil to the fretboard just to give it a little bit more moisture. So now the next phase is I've got this cavity, and I'm going to ultimately be putting on this cover plate that'll have my bender mechanism on it. So I have to line up how this sets perfectly on the top of the instrument. What I use is a template I've come up with that lays on the top of the guitar, and then I can line it up and I can get where my holes should be drilled to make this perfectly level once it's installed. Then I cut a hole for my pickup jack these are acoustic electric, so that's where my plug-in will be. Next phase is mounting the biscuit to the cone. This is called the biscuit, and it has my pickup on the underside of it. This is the cord and the jack that will ultimately come out of that hole. So once I have this completed, I'll carve the saddle. The saddle goes into the biscuit, and it's what the strings ride over when you strum a resophonic guitar. So that sets down in here, and I carve these from scratch. This is ebony on the top and maple on the bottom. That's about it for the construction phase of it. The final touches are, of course, doing the polish and bringing it up to a full luster, cleaning up all my bindings that are on the instrument just to make sure they're nice and smooth. So ultimately, that final step was installing the cover plate with my bending mechanism, and this is what I've developed. They're fabricated out in New York by a partner of mine in this design. And then I mount them to the cover plate, and then the cover plate gets mounted to the body, and that's how it comes together. If you'd like to hear it in action, come by Vibrato Resophonic Guitars at 235 North Main Street. Thanks.
I'm Patricia Amlin, and this is my painting. I paint in watercolor and in oil, and it's summertime, so this is the painting that I go out very often, every day, and paint way out in the mountains, past Gothic, past Benbow Lake, and I enjoy myself thoroughly, and I think the watercolors enjoy me too. And then I went through a stage of sandhill cranes, and so here's another sandhill crane. And then there's two sandhill cranes saying goodnight to each other. And then that farther abstract piece was what I was doing in Santa Fe.
I'm Susan Crawford, and this is my work. I do monotypes, mixed media collage, and watercolor. I also am a signature member of the Colorado Watercolor Society, having won many awards over several years. Lucille Lucas has lived in the Gunnison Valley for many, many years. She's a pastelist and printmaker, and these are some of her lovely works. She also has a gallery on Tamichi and has had many, many galleries in the area for years. Karen Hill also is a signature member of the Colorado Watercolor Society. She's the president of the Western Slope chapter of the Colorado Watercolor Society, winner of many awards, and you can see by the excellence of her use of watercolor that she's an exceptional artist. Chris Miller is an artist that lives in Almont. She's new to watercolor and has really taken off with her work. Lynn Card is a local plein air artist who features work from all over the Gunnison Valley, and her art is very well received with the public. If you want something local, pick up one of Lynn's paintings. Cheryl Pettigrew is new to the gallery. She works in oil, and she's also a resident of the Gunnison Valley. We're glad to be able to feature her work. Jackie Kingsbury is from Crested Butte. She's a part-time resident who's been here for over 30 years, and her work is exceptional. She's a signature member of the Colorado Watercolor Society and has won many awards. Debbie Phelps is a longtime resident of the Gunnison Valley. Her work is imaginative, colorful, and very thoughtfully done. She's one of the greatest artists that we have here, I think. This art is by an African artist who also lives part-time in Santa Fe. His name is Buba Consimbo, and his work is very well received in Santa Fe, and he is now in our gallery to show his work. We're expecting more of his work soon. Paul Sauter is a potter, a local potter, and he does these sculptures that are quite graphic. Paul's drums are very nice. Karen Wolf is a summer resident. She lives in Almont, and her work is very well presented. Bob Albrecht is new to the Gunnison Valley, but he certainly does have a way with expressing the Indian feeling in his work.
Your environment's going to influence your work, no matter what. You can get out there as much as you want and find that inspiration. And a lot of times it finds you. My name is John Fellows, and I'm from Crested Butte, Colorado. My medium is block printing and linoleum carving. Carving by hand, block printing is a really old pastime. It was used on the graphic design side of things for a long time. It was always hard when people asked what your style was. Somebody named it contemporary folk. So I think it's a contemporary spin on an old school profession and artistic style. I'll go look at something, and no matter how much I want to represent it, my brain and my creative side will just change it. The practice of carving really broke me of the control freak nature. No matter what initial drawing looks like, the finished product is going to look totally different. My work, it starts off from a personal side. It's enjoying the outdoors. River art, mountain pieces, the skiing pieces. I want people to want to go there. I want people to be able to project their own stories onto the finished piece. That's how my work represents the art of the outdoors.
Here's another pandemic song, waltz number 19. Good enough.
Man, that song's hard. Man, that song's
All right, I just get in my head.
Okay, last
That's
one.
a new name. Yeah, we renamed that song. Man, that song's hard.
Yeah, that song's hard. That's the new name.
Hi everyone, my name is Sam Smythe. I am a composer here in Gunnison. I moved here with my wife about 7 years ago from Los Angeles, where I have been composing music for films and video games. I now have a studio here in Gunnison. I'll show you some of the projects that I've worked on. A lot of it in the past has been Star Wars related for video games. I've worked on Star Wars Battlefronts 1 and 2, Jedi Fallen Order that has recently come out, as well as Halo Wars 2. If we move in here, you'll see a little bit of my studio. And as you can see, I have a lot of sound panels all over the walls. This unfortunately doesn't keep sound from coming out of the room, but it does help the sound in the room from bouncing off the walls. Over here, you can actually see a little bit of my hobby corner. I am a wood burner and woodworker, and I currently actually have some pieces in the Gunnison Art Center's community show. And so this is kind of the area that I do a little bit of my hobby working when I'm not composing. So I wanted to show you my studio setup here. It's pretty basic, actually. I have a couple of audio interfaces that I use with my keyboard, and I have my screen turned this way because I can actually see full orchestral scores. I work on a lot of orchestral scores for the video games and films that I work on, and I thought I'd play a little bit of music for you. This is from a film that hasn't been released yet, but I will show you a little sneak peek of what some of the music sounds like. So that's a little bit of what I do. Hope you enjoyed it.
So this song is called The Last Spike.